This is Assessment 1 of Group 7. The group members are Yiming Wei, Chouyue Li, and Ray Gong. We will introduce the response of Naviyu, also called Dali River, to the flood in 2015. Naviyu is a main indigenous community in the Dali River area with a population of 468. So, people call this town Dali River. It is located in the Catherine region of Northern Territory, which is located 230 kilometers from Darwin. Due to the tropical low pressure, monsoon rains better this area every summer. From December 2015 to January 2016, the rainfall exceeded the Euro standard. So Darwin River Dam reached capacity and started to spill in communities of Dali River. The Northern Territorial Emergency Services dispatched 24 helicopters and a large number of buses to evacuate part of the local residents from the Naviyu community. The remaining residents were evacuated to the high ground of the community and waited for several days until the emergency services sent them to Darwin. In addition, the local government blocked the road to Naviyu and sent police to search for the missing. After that, nearly 500 residents stayed in the temporary evacuation center in Darwin for 2 weeks. In the meantime, the government managed the indigenous people to ensure their safety and provided Darwin with a $2 million relief fund to ensure their basic living conditions. After the evacuation, residents and volunteers cleaned up their homes and returned there. Unfortunately, the government has not given any further solutions to the problems of heavy flooding, because 2 years later, in the summer of 20 strategies how to help the Naviyu community.
Thanks Chouyue Li and Ray Gong. In this part of presentation, I will talk about potential risk of Dali River and 3 precedent analysis. After research and analysis, we discovered that floods can be a potential natural disaster for Dali River Aboriginal community, as here is adjacent to the Dali River. If some extreme weather such as rainstorm and tropical cyclone happen, water level of Dali River can rapidly rise. The floods will occur and damage Aboriginal people's homes. Then I will describe the 4th precedent analysis, the Danico Flood Control Board. The Danico Flood Control Board was designed by a Swedish company named Danico. It can block liquids and protect urban area from waterlogging caused by the sudden rainstorm and flood. The Danico Flood Control Board is a movable water returning board, which is a contemporary flood protection board that can stand alone. The flood protection board is pressed by the directional pressure. The friction force cast to the ground makes it more stable, suitable for use on relatively flat ground, such as urban asphalt pavement or cement ground. The second precedent analysis is the wooden pavement in Quebec, Canada, which designed by New Zealand designer Ronan Gartman. He designed wooden pavement to substitute traditional concrete pavement. As water cannot sink through concrete, if the pavement made in concrete, floods will be gathered on the concrete pavement and become more serious. Gartman set a motto: we should start to cooperate with nature rather than versus with nature. Floors will sink into underground through the wooden pavement was designed by Gartman, which greatly enhanced the efficiency of floors dredge. The final precedent analysis is the sponge ground and water reservoir. The principle of sponge ground is to use permissible materials, absorb water to control floods and rainstorm. The main material of sponge road made in permissible concrete, water from floods and rainfall will be dredged through the sponge road and into water pool, which can be recycled and irrigate crops on the farmland. To some extent, not only sponge ground can prevent flood, but also can serve drought. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks, Amy. It's Ray, and I will give some speeches about site. Firstly, we consider the climate when we start to talk about site. As we mentioned at the beginning, Dali River has a tropical monsoon climate. There is a dry season and a wet season. The dry season from May to October. The days are sunny and the evenings are cool. The humidity is low with an average daily temperature around 32 degrees Celsius. Between November and April, the thunderstorms fill the sky. The humidity rises as high as 98%. The temperature can hit 39 degrees Celsius inland. We need to consider how to protect residents' houses and our design from humidity. The wet season is also the northeast cyclone season, so there are often floods in this season. Our design may be able to store water in the wet season with the function of flood control. With the decrease of temperature, the water will be released again in the dry season, and after some treatment, it will enter the river again or be used by the residents. In addition, our design should also take into account the impact of cyclones, which may be combined with the road surface or be installed on the riverbank or use high wind speed to pump water during the wet season. Okay, next slide. This is a 2D and 3D maps of the Dali River community and the area around it, which are done by ourselves. We can see the Naviu community is located on the bank of Dali River. Its altitude is the most lowest nearby, and there are no mountains around it. Dali River from Mount Nanka is getting fast here. It causes more damage during the wet season. In other words, the flood height will increase at a higher speed in this area, leaving the government and residents with a short time to make emergency response. Once Dali River residents called for housing to be moved at flood-prone township, but for some reason the government didn't do so. So, the low terrain is still one of the reasons for the flood. In such a low-lying area, improving the drainage system is likely to do not help cutting down the impact of flooding. So, our design can consider how to get more time for residents to leave the community when the floods are coming. For example, we can build houses on movable wooden floors. When the flood comes, the houses can float on the water for a period of time, and people have more time to evacuate and remove their property, or some small waterproof boards on the road surface, which are similar to the world's longest buoyant flood barrier in Spakenburg in the Netherlands. It will rise and fall with the change of the water level. None of these designs will destroy the environment of the area. Okay, next. The Dali region contains several wetlands which are home to a variety of aquatic and bird life, including magpie geese, herons, and allies.
82 households were interviewed 8 times a year. People were asked about when they went fishing or hunting, where they went, and what they caught. Barramundi, nose turtle, catfish. The researchers also wanted to know about country and the seasons. Seasonal calendars were made with 4 different language groups. They are based on Aboriginal knowledge of the plants and animals harvested throughout the year. As the billabong levels drop during the dry season, plants can be collected along the edges. These include Minimindi, the water lily, Mulngini, the lotus lily, and Mudugud, the water chestnut.
If we are going to design a drainage system, the outflow of drainage system must not towards ocean and river directly, which may cause population to the local plants and animals. And there are a lot of fishes and crocodiles living in the river. Dali River is regarded as one of the best fishing places for catching barramundi in Australia. When the flood comes, crocodiles will enter the community and pose a threat to the residents. So the design must be able to prevent crocodiles from entering the houses to some extent. In addition, there are also aquabuse problem, education problem, unemployment problem, and the ecological problems caused by barramundi fishing in this area, which we need to pay attention to later in our design. Well, my part is done. Thanks for your listening.
Those rivers, creeks, and billabongs are important to us. We rely on those places for food and medicines. Other people say they need water for their businesses, such as farming and cattle, but no one has really talked to us about how important those water places are for hunting and fishing practices.
Well, the National Water Policy of 2004, the National Water Initiative it's called, for the first time in Australia's history recognised the importance of water to Aboriginal societies, and it actually urges Australian state governments to include Aboriginal people in water planning, to understand their water use requirements, and to consider the impacts of water use decisions on their societies, their economies and their culture.
Okay, thanks Rigong. Next I will talk about some inhabitant analysis. As for the cultural values of the inhabitants, water is considered as a sacred element source and a symbol of life by Aboriginal people in the region. Water is to meet authentic, recreational, and cultural needs. Furthermore, people are sharing and changing resources on a very broad scale. This could happen with community further upstream and downstream.
So we found that people are sharing resources on a very broad scale. So you have family groups going out hunting and fishing. They're bringing some back to their own household, but a lot is being distributed very widely, not only within the community, but with communities further upstream and downstream. And there's also a bit of a resource exchange going on. So some communities might be able to get magpie goose eggs, for example, and they're flying them up to another community who is exchanging them with turtle to another community.
So for our design, we should consider not just a specific community, but on a much broader geographic scale. In terms of politics, inhabitants should work closely with Mother Earth. They work together to protect the nature. Therefore, our design needs to be environmental friendly by using recyclable materials. In addition, we need to cater for inhabitants with special needs. For example, Aboriginal people have used waterways for thousands of years and continue hunting and fishing practices to this day. It is important to educate kids to learn how to hunt and fish these places to preserve these traditions. So, our design might preserve their traditions in a reasonable way. Furthermore, farmers need to work together with other water users to make important water decisions. So, suggestions of our design need to be collected from those people.
Working closely with Mother Earth, and we work together to try and she provides us with food, and then in return we look after her by not doing anything that's not pleasing her. To make these important water decisions, we need to work together with other water users, including farmers, to make sure the plants and animals are protected and our traditions are preserved.
However, some potential dangers might arise as a result of these inhabitants. For example, if farmers take too much water during the dry season, this could be a problem for important fish. So we need to figure out how to recycle water reasonably during the climate change. In addition, some potential issues may affect those inhabitants. The river is like the heart, while creeks and the springs run into it. They come from the aquifer. If floods pollute the river or people drain the aquifer out to farm, the system will be affected. In order to solve these problems, we can figure out a way to recycle and purify water from floods or rain. On the other hand, there are still many chronic issues in Daly River. For example, the community has been badly affected by the 2007 intervention. The community has lost all rights to make decisions about itself. All power has been diverted to people outside the community. Jobs have been largely decreased. The quality of workmanship has been reduced since outsiders have been brought in to replace local workers. The store, fuel outlet, and job services are run by outsiders. There are no opportunities for local young people. In addition, young people in Niuyu are not succeeding in their education. Following school, there are many young people at Niuyu who need to be meaningfully employed in order to become confident and successful adults. As we want to design a system to recycle water, these people could be employed to help manage the system. End of the presentation. Thanks for watching.